On a warm summer evening in Portugal, when the sunset painted the narrow streets in soft shades of amber and gold, Clara Silva walked her usual route home. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet that only arrives after the workday ends, when the smell of coffee fades, shutters close, and people retreat indoors. Clara was tired, the kind of tired that sinks into your bones after long hours, but she walked with her head slightly lifted, letting the breeze cool her face. Nothing felt unusual. Nothing felt extraordinary. It was just another ordinary evening. At least, that's what she thought. She had taken no more than a dozen steps past a crosswalk when a sound shattered the calm. A single desperate meow, loud, sharp, frightened. Clara froze. Another meow followed, more frantic this time, bouncing off the narrow walls of the quiet street. She turned slowly, trying to locate the sound. No pedestrians. No cars passing. Only the echo. "Hello?" she called out softly, feeling slightly foolish for speaking aloud to an empty street. The answer was another cry, shorter, sharper, almost pleading. Her heartbeat kicked up in pace. She traced the sound to the side of an old apartment building with gray stone walls that had stood there far longer than anyone remembered. An electrical utility box rested against the side, metal scraped and rusted at its edges. Clara stepped closer. The meowing grew louder, frenzied now. She dropped to her knees and leaned to the side, peeking into the pitch-black gap behind the electrical box. Two enormous ears appeared first, then a pair of wide, glowing, terrified eyes. A tiny kitten wedged deep inside the narrow crevice, trapped in shadow, trembling so hard its ears twitched with every sound. "Oh no, sweetheart," Clara whispered. The kitten tried to back further in fear, but had nowhere to go, its tiny body pressed against the cold concrete wall. Clara reached her fingers toward him, but he flattened himself even more, letting out a hoarse, desperate cry, as if begging anyone to understand how scared he was. Clara's heart clenched. She lifted her head, scanning for someone else nearby, anyone, but the street remained empty. What was this kitten doing here? How had it gotten stuck? Had someone abandoned it? Or had it simply wandered into a place it couldn't escape? The thought made her stomach twist. Clara knew she couldn't leave. She pulled out her phone and dialed Portugal's emergency rescue line, requesting immediate help. "There's a kitten trapped behind an electrical box. I can't reach him," she explained breathlessly. "We'll send the fire team," the dispatcher replied. "Stay with it, please. Keep talking to it. Don't let it panic." Clara hung up and leaned near the box again. The kitten stared straight back, frozen with fear. "It's okay," she murmured gently. "I'm not leaving. I promise. You're not alone." Her voice softened, rocking softly with empathy, like speaking to a scared child after a nightmare. Minutes crawled by, every second feeling impossibly long. The kitten's breathing came in rapid, shallow bursts, its heart likely sprinting faster than its tiny body could handle. Clara sat on the cold pavement, ignoring the discomfort, keeping her voice low and warm. "You're safe. Help is coming," she repeated quietly, unsure whether the kitten understood her words, but hoping it felt her intention. Finally, the faint wail of a siren cut through the still air. A red fire truck rounded the corner and stopped beside her. Two firefighters stepped down, one carrying a flashlight, the other a toolkit. Clara stood quickly. Behind the electrical box he stuck in the gap. They knelt, shining the flashlight behind the metal box. The light caught fur, tiny, dusty, quivering. "Poor little guy," one firefighter muttered. The other set his toolkit down. "We'll have to dismount the box. It's his only safe way out." They worked with patient hands, unscrewing panel bolts one by one, pulling the metal casing back just far enough. The kitten shrank deeper at first, terrified of the metal scraping and tools clinking, but Clara kept speaking to him in soft Portuguese. "It's okay. You're doing so well. They're helping you." After several minutes of careful maneuvering, one firefighter reached behind gently with gloved hands and felt a tiny body. "Got him." Slowly, carefully, he pulled the kitten out. A frail little thing trembling so badly his legs barely supported him. His fur was dusty and matted, and his oversized ears made his head look almost too large for his small frame. He looked at Clara, really looked, as if recognizing the voice that kept him from losing hope. Clara felt her breath escape in relief. He's okay, the firefighter confirmed. No injuries, just shaken and very hungry. Clara reached out her arms on instinct, and the firefighter gently placed the trembling kitten into her hands. The moment he felt warmth and safety, the kitten pressed his face against her wrist, a tiny, fragile surrender. Clara swallowed the lump in her throat, holding him against her chest to share her body heat. "Thank you," she told the firefighters, voice thick with emotion. Before they left, one of them glanced back with a knowing smile. He chose the right person to cry for. Clara looked at the tiny creature, curled under her chin, a creature she hadn't expected, hadn't sought, but now couldn't imagine leaving behind. She whispered to him, as though telling a secret only the two of them needed to know. "You're coming home with me." The kitten nuzzled closer, exhausted, trusting, safe for the first time. As Clara turned the corner toward her apartment, she paused. "You need a name," she said softly. The kitten lifted his head, enormous ears twitching. Clara smiled. "Spock," she whispered. "You look like a Spock." And in the quiet warmth of her arms, the kitten finally fell asleep. Clara's apartment wasn't large, but it carried warmth, a warmth built from framed memories, soft pillows, hanging plants, and the unmistakable scent of home-cooked meals. As she stepped through the door with the tiny sleeping kitten tucked against her chest, her two cats and golden brown dog lifted their heads instantly. 3 pairs of eyes blinked curiously. Her dog, friendly but cautious, approached with a slow wagging tail. The older cat jumped onto the couch to get a better look. The younger one hid behind a chair, peeking from the shadows as if trying to solve a mystery. Clara gently placed the kitten Spock onto a towel-lined basket she had quickly prepared. He was still too weak to stand for long, his thin legs wobbling each time he tried to shift. Clara boiled water, preparing a warm bath in a small basin. The kitten's fur was dusty, his paws blackened from the crevice he had been trapped in. As she dipped a soft cloth into the warm water and wiped his tiny body carefully, he didn't fight or flinch, only closed his eyes, trusting the touch. "You've been through a lot for someone so small," she whispered with a gentle smile. When the bath was done, Clara wrapped him in a soft towel, drying his oversized ears that made him look almost comic if he hadn't been so heartbreakingly fragile. Spock tried to meow, but only managed a soft rasp, the kind that comes after crying too much for too long. Clara fed him with a syringe, a liquid diet recommended by the emergency advice she'd received, drop by drop, carefully, lovingly. Every swallow was slow, difficult, but he tried, and that was enough. The days passed like delicate steps across thin ice. Clara woke at night to feed him. She warmed towels to keep his body temperature stable. She held him against her chest after every feeding because he relaxed only when he heard a heartbeat. The other pets watched from a distance at first. Then something changed. Her old dog began sleeping near Spock's basket, guarding him like a silent sentinel. Her youngest cat started pawing softly at the edge of the basket, not to bother him, but to get closer. Trust was building, not in words, but in presence. Soon Spock began to move around on his own, clumsy at first, his legs unsure whether they could support his little body. He stumbled, tripped over his tail, got up again, persistence born from instinct and love he wasn't sure he understood yet. Clara laughed softly the first time he tried to pounce and toppled sideways into a pillow. "You're stronger than you think," she told him. Weeks slipped by, and Spock's transformation was undeniable. The once fragile, trembling kitten now chased shadows on the wall and pounced on toys twice his size. His ears remained ridiculously oversized, earning him extra affection and endless teasing from Clara's friends. His once bony frame filled out, his fur grew glossy, and his voice came back sharper and louder than ever. He meowed at everything. At toys, at food, at Clara's shoes, at Clara herself, whenever she dared to ignore him. But the meow he gave her in quiet moments, the soft, affectionate one, always reminded her of that night behind the electrical box. The night he called for help, and she answered. One evening, Clara sat on the couch with her legs curled under a blanket. Her dog slept at her feet. One cat was perched on the top of the couch. The other stretched lazily near the window. Spock climbed into her lap, circled twice claiming his territory, then settled against her shoulder. He purred deep, steady, content. Clara stroked his back, her smile widening with memories she could now replay without pain. I wasn't supposed to bring another animal home, she said quietly, half amused, half overwhelmed. Spock tilted his head up as if he understood, and for that moment, Clara believed he did. She continued in a soft whisper, her voice full of reflection. But I didn't find you. You found me. Spock pressed his forehead against her chin, his version of a promise. A promise Clara felt in her chest. Because some rescues are not coincidences, they're crossings meant to happen. A frightened kitten behind a metal box. A woman walking home on a quiet evening. One desperate meow. One moment that changed two lives forever. Clara leaned her head back and closed her eyes as Spock continued to purr. She had rescued him from a dark and narrow space. But in ways she didn't expect, he had rescued her right back. And that is how a call for help became a story of family. One built not by blood, but by compassion.